Hey, what's up everybody? It's Chronicles and welcome back to more Xenoblade Chronicles. Last time, we defeated Zanza and created a world without gods. Or without the need for a god. And this time, there's not going to be as much like gameplay as much as I just wanted to kind of go over a few things that have happened with this game since completing it, as well as go over a few things in the ending that I didn't really get a chance to touch on. So, first of all, upon completing the game, you are rewarded with this new title screen. It's pretty nice. I'll admit I kind of like the Monado one a little bit more because of just how iconic it is, but this one's also pretty good and it shows off the characters just, you know, enjoying the new world that they live in. And also, upon completing the main game, you unlock this, New Game Plus. I'm sure a lot of you already kind of know what this is, but in case you don't, New Game Plus is basically you start the game over from the very beginning, and you play through the entire thing again. Okay, then what's the point of New Game? Well, New Game Plus basically carries over everything that you had. So, every weapon, every piece of armor, all affinity, everything carries over. Even your levels. If you're playing the Wii or 3DS version, I guess this isn't that enticing since you're kind of locked into the levels, and so it makes pretty much the entire game a joke. But if you're playing definitive and you have expert mode, this is a huge boon and it does help out a lot with leveling down, and you basically just play through the game with stronger armor, essentially. And on top of that, there's another boon to it that you might be interested in. The third Monado. Yep, the Monado that we used to defeat Zanza with. Well, you can actually use it in New Game Plus. It replaces the Monado and has all the same stats and everything from that battle. Meaning, you can pretty much just demolish everything and you can have the most overpowered weapon right from the get-go. Do I want to do this? No. In fact, I've never done a single New Game Plus playthrough of this game before. I love it, but every time I want to replay it, it's always with a fresh new file, never with a New Game Plus. In fact, I think the only New Game Plus in the series that's actually worth playing is Xenoblade 2. That's the only one that I think is actually worth anything. But it's there if you want it. Next, let's talk about that ending. So, yeah, turns out that Zanza was actually human the entire time. He was a scientist named Klaus, and he basically built a machine that would recreate the world, essentially creating a new Big Bang. But this experiment went awry, and he and his assistant became the bionists and the mechanists in a recreated world. Some people are kind of torn on this ending because they feel like it's trying to insert some kind of sci-fi nonsense into a story that was already working pretty well on its own. But I think it works pretty well within the context of kind of this world. I call this game more of a fantasy story than I do sci-fi, but it is a sci-fi fantasy mix, and I think showing that Klaus was a human and that he was just simply given too much power and became corrupted by it, and essentially formed a Jesus complex. It's actually kind of interesting and adds a new layer to the story. And again, it also kind of helps explain a few details, like the fact that the Monado kind of looks advanced despite it being a super ancient sword. Because when Klaus activated the machine, it actually was that technically took place in the far-flung future. So I think that's actually kind of interesting. And also finding out that Alvis was actually a machine, essentially a supercomputer, a super AI. It's also kind of an interesting talking point and an interesting interpretation. It explains how it really explains a lot about kind of how he knows everything and knows a lot about the Monado and Zanza and everything. Plus, it kind of made sense why he would serve Zanza, because he was essentially the computer that activated everything and turned them into gods. He's no more than just a simple computer, doing what he was programmed to do. So I find that very fascinating. The last point that I kind of wanted to bring up does involve spoilers for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. So, if you have not played that game, I would highly recommend you familiarize with yourself with that story, or you click off now. You have been warned. So, one of the most clever things about Xenoblade 1's story and Xenoblade 2's story is how they're connected through Klaus, and how the architect in Xenoblade 2 is essentially the good side and Zanza is the evil side of Klaus. And how they're just two halves of the same whole. And it really puts the story into new perspective. And I think that really is a clever way to make them into a single coherent story, rather than just two very separate ones. So I really like that. And I've already alluded to this, but I think now is the time to talk about it. Let's talk about the crystal on Alvis's necklace. In the original Wii and 3DS version, it was just a key. It looked like a regular key around his neck. It had no meaning to it. However, in Definitive Edition, they changed it to look like a cross. Or more specifically, an Aegis crystal, like the one on Pyra and Mithra, and the one on Malos. This implies that Alvis is indeed the third Aegis that disappeared when the conduit was activated in Xenoblade Chronicles 2. And on top of that, it's also possible that the Monado is actually an Aegis sword. This could further be proven with the fact that Malos' weapon is actually just a darker Monado. He even uses Monado arts if you focus on the battle between him. If you focus on one of the boss fights just before entering the land of Moratha. And this is even further proven in the DLC for Xenoblade 3, but I won't get too much into that. So yeah, overall, I really like this ending, and I really do think it has a lot of interesting bits of lore, and overall, I just find it to be a very interesting talking point, and I think a lot of it is very effective, and I think it just really screams to how good the writing is in the game. Again, I know that some people are kind of split on the whole Klaus thing, but otherwise, I've heard people pretty much unanimously say that it's a fantastic ending, and yeah, I'm among that crowd. Like, the ending was what single-handedly pushed it from like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 to like a 9 out of 10 for me. And have it be in my like top 20, maybe even top 15 favorite games of all time. So, yeah, overall, really love this ending. I think it's one of the strongest in any video game. And I hope you enjoyed it. But we're not quite done with this game yet. There's still a lot to do, and there's still some stuff we need to take care of. So, next time on Xenoblade Chronicles, we begin the post-game. See you guys then.